I can barely see anyway, so it doesn't matter if I see.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Hold on. So let's go solo Dave. Okay. What's going on, everybody? It's Dave Mater coming at you for Live Long and Podcast, covering Star Trek and TV movie reviews. We are covering Star Trek Picard, Episode 1, the premiere, Remembrance, today. This is Saturday, January 25th, 2020. The show aired 2 days ago. I'm going to bring in my guests. First up, my lovely wife, Jane. Wait, here she comes in 3, 2, 1, and... Hello. It says audio only. Why? I don't know. That's a good question. Let's bring in Jody.
I don't hear anybody now, except for you.
Let's bring in Jody. Okay. Oh, wait. I got to turn my solo off. That's why.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. It's still a work in progress. God. We're all here. Isn't that fun? So,
yeah, sure.
Wow. Jane's gone.
Jane and I are trying to share the same internet connection, so this is a little bit of the issue too.
It's 2020, for fuck's sakes. You should be able to put two of them on.
Yeah, you think? We're using the modem you gave us.
Well, then it definitely should be fine. It's a $300 router.
Yeah. We got Kevin Millard. How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm good.
Yeah, he's up there. He's above. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I do the Brady Bunch thing. Da, 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 da. Oh, it's this way. And there's Jane.
Jane? Oh, going well. So this episode it has aired, and I think that the first thing we should kind of do when we cover the show each week is just kind of get our initial reactions. So we'll how about we go clockwise from my perspective. So we'll start with Kevin. Kevin, what did you think of this week's episode?
Well, what?
The premiere of Star Trek Picard.
Well, it was good. It was what I've been looking for from Star Trek for quite some time.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, the font wasn't great.
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw that.
Well, we'll get to that.
I'm like, Kevin's not going to like this font.
Yeah.
Everything was good. It was a little actiony, but it looks like it's going to have a good story through it.
Mm-hmm.
Which Star Trek is.
The low point was the font for Kevin.
Yes.
Jody, what did you think?
I thought it was an excellent introduction back into the Next Gen universe. I think it has massive pacing problems, but past that, it's the first episode, so I can understand that, I guess. But overall, it was nice to see Picard kind of not even really. He didn't even miss a beat. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of started, and you're just like, you're there, you're back in that world, you're back, we're doing a spoiler one, right? This is all spoiler.
Oh yeah, this is full spoilers.
Okay, okay. So like, for instance, the first scene we hear blue skies, which has quite a lot of predominance in the entire series. It's happened many, many times throughout the series, including the movies as well. The song Blue Skies. So like, all that just kind of, it was almost like nothing ever, nothing. There was no gap. We just started again. You know what I mean? But then we're obviously introduced to the fact that, we're way later in life. Mm-hmm. But overall, I thought the episode was great, other than pacing.
Okay,
and the font. The font was terrible.
The font was also. We got 2 votes down on the font. The title sequence.
They got to do something about that.
Okay, let's shift to Jane. Jane, save the best for last. Jane, what?
Oh, yes.
So high-level thoughts on the episode, and we'll kind of get into the minutia of everything. But let's, just initial, like, how did you feel about the episode and this premiere of Star Trek Picard?
I liked it, like the others. I think, like a lot of other people, I really liked it. I didn't get too many spoilers. I tried to avoid it ahead of time. I did check out a couple of the countdowns the day or two before for a little background. I like that it felt like TNG. It didn't have like a lot of the action. There's a lot of dialogue and, a couple of good action scenes, but they seemed like they were there for a reason. So liked it.
So you're referring to the fact that like the Next Generation movies, the 4 that featured that crew, were very action driven.
Yeah. And even like the new, like, with the new Star Trek's like it's just go, 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 go.
Explosion,
So I like explosion after
firefight,
explosion.
whatever.
So I like more like there's a mystery we have to solve. Like that's the more Star Trek that I like. So I'm really excited about this this point.
As are we all, and hence we're here. So that's great. Okay, so I want to just talk about the episode. We can kind of jump around here in terms of what stuck out to us individually. I might kind of go around the corner. Jody, let's. You mentioned that opening sequence. That it turns out to be a dream sequence of Picard. We start in space with the blue skies. Song that Data sang in Star Trek Nemesis. It was kind of like, and then I think B4 kind of sang at the very end of that movie as like sort of a memory.
B4 whistled it right at the end as well.
Right at the end. So kind of teasing the fact that Data might come back through B4 or something like that one day. And then, so right away we're pulled into 10 forward. They're playing a poker game, but you kind of know something's amiss because Data is not wearing the appropriate uniform for that
he's
period.
He's in the uniform that wouldn't have existed back then. So because they didn't translate to that until after the movies, in between the movies, right?
So tell me what you thought about this whole sequence, this dream sequence that we open up on the first scene of the show.
It was a nostalgia grab, plain and simple. This was a way to hook people who were big Next Gen fans. This is the hey, by the way, we're a Next Gen show. That's really what we are. That was kind of how they started it, I think. It led up to, what obviously was happening with Mars and all that. And obviously the, what do they call the androids now? They call them
synthetics.
Synthetics, that's it. So with that, the synthetics, doing the attack and stuff like that. But you don't really know that from that dream sequence. You just know that he's sitting there, he's back with his old friend who obviously doesn't exist anymore. So we know that there's something going on. There's something amiss, obviously.
Kevin, what did you think of the makeup on Brent Spiner and Data? Like
terrible font.
I didn't.
You had no thoughts on that?
Actually, I thought it was interesting how it did pull me out a little bit because I was like, oh, he's an android. He's not supposed to get kind of puffy and
old. Do you feel like they were showing his age, like the age of the actor a little bit?
A little bit of Brent Spiner was in there.
They were trying not to, but it's hard. It's, however many years later.
Right. Well, I remember the last time Brent Spiner played Data in Nemesis, he felt like the reason he needed to kill off the character was like, I can't even play this character anymore like I did in 1987. Like, I don't look like that version of me anymore. And they wrote into it that,
they're going to bring him back in this show, just like Search for Spock. There's the memory engrams that are left and Before's body.
Yeah.
Copra and Bones. And they're going to put them together, and Data's going to come back.
You think Data's coming back?
Yep.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
They're gonna try to get his like positronic net or whatever bullshit all sorted out, but I think it's going to be in something else.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up, is because like a big part of this episode was also driven around the whole setup of synthetics, that there was some kind of rogue group of androids, synthetics, that did something on Mars around the same time that the Romulan refugee crisis, supernova crisis was happening, and that led to a ban. And so we meet the Alison Pill character at the Daystrom Institute in this episode, and she kind of sets up that like you can kind of recreate Data's entire neural net from one, what is it, neuron?
Positron
neuron from his positronic brain.
Yeah.
Which, I like, it kind of bugged me at first, and then I'm like, well, it's science fiction. They can kind of make it whatever they want, but
she says his memories and everything, so he's coming back.
He's coming back.
I think the essence of him will come back. I don't think Brent Spiner is interested in walking around on that set anymore. So it didn't even feel like he was totally in the scene, even in the memory scene, like at the beginning. It didn't feel like he was in it.
Well, it's not really him. It's just it's a dream of him.
I get that, but he's still acting. He's still on the show. Like, it's whether it's a guest appearance or not. It just didn't feel like it was him trying to be exactly like Data. You know what I mean? Like, which I guess in a way kind of makes sense because it's supposed to be obviously a dream and didn't actually happen and all that.
And we get two sequences in the show with Data. We get the one at the beginning that's on the Enterprise D, and then this other one later on in like the vineyard outside, and they're in their classic Next Generation era uniforms.
Yeah.
And in both of those, it's almost like Data is like kind of like a hidden memory or some kind of his conscience speaking to him. But let's get back to that. So I know my next question would be for Jane, but I'm going to give this one to Kevin just because I know he didn't like the font. But I am curious. I am curious about what you thought of the title sequence, like the whole like intro music and like the animations that accompanied it.
I thought they were all right. It scared me at first at the beginning with the music.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh no.
You're like, is this Discovery? Have they tricked me?
Yeah, exactly. But it kind of goes back. The music is sort of Voyager-esque.
Sort of.
I got that vibe too.
It almost seemed like a throwback.
I definitely personally got a vibe of Discovery. I felt like whoever made the Discovery title sequence made this as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that happened.
The music is not, it's kind of what's the composition, like an orchestra composition that I'm trying to get to, but it's very like the pacing and the timing of the music is not what I consider more standard Star Trek anthem. Any thoughts on that?
Not really. It does. It is a lot like Discovery, but better.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out the glass and like the shattered glass and the glass falling. And
that's easy.
And then it goes to.
I can explain that right now if you want. Yeah, he's trying to complete
it's
himself again. He's a shattered man, right? So if you see it, it's falling into like the Borg ships. That's going through like part of his history. And then it starts going through various things, and there's a whole slew of like in the sequence itself. I actually watched the sequence the second time because like I'm like, what the fuck is with this glass? What the hell are they doing? Oh, by the way, is this a friendly podcast or can I swear?
We try to avoid it, but okay. I won't. I certainly
All right, I'm gonna try to avoid it. But anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's going on here? So I actually watched it again, and if you actually watch it again, Jane, from the beginning, you'll kind of follow his career to a degree. So just watch the sequence again, and you'll see that. I thought that was actually pretty cool that they did that. That was definitely kind of a nostalgia jump.
Do you notice Hal was in there?
Oh yeah.
Hal. Like anyway, I don't think they meant to do that, but
like Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not totally sure why that was there. I'm wondering if it was supposed to be like another element, and it just kind of looked like that. But
or it was like a Borg, one of the Borg red eyes.
It could have been like a Borg eye or something. Yeah, it could be that true. Yeah,
I thought it was an android eye upon the rewatch, like that.
It could have been
the android and everything to do with Soong type androids. It's going to play heavily into this show.
Oh, that's clearly,
that's what I'm getting the impression of, which I wasn't totally expecting. I knew that the Borg were going to be back and that the Romulans were going to play a major part in this show. I wasn't, and that Data was somehow in it, but that it was going to be so driven around androids was a bit of a surprise. Not that I'm against it. I think that that's interesting because Picard had been such an advocate for the rights of cybernetic life forms during his time knowing Data. But when you think about it, and I want to just talk about this whole like what we learn basically in the first 10 or 20 minutes of this episode. We get a very condensed version of what's been going on since we last saw Picard, which was in Star Trek Nemesis. Yeah. So we wake up from the dream sequence. We're in the vineyard at Chateau Picard. We learn he's got a dog. He's got a couple of Romulan, like, I don't want to say servants, but like they kind of feel like they're like his house manager and something like that. Maybe, I don't know. I kind of got that feeling, like, you know, that Picard is like he's the master of a large winemaking operation, and he's kind of got all these people working for him. But it turns out that these are mostly refugees from the Romulan crisis. Jane, you had read a little bit on this.
I think these two, that they're two former Tal Shiar. Yeah, you guys. So they were a couple that were not to be. They're in love, and anyway, they did something on some planet with Picard, but the third comic hasn't come out yet, and I think that's who they are.
It's implied that they were on a mission with them, and things went bad, but past that you don't really know, right?
And I like these two actors a lot. I thought that both of their performances, in particular, I don't know their names yet. I haven't gotten really to know these two Romulans' names, but the male with the beard, he was very compelling. But she was also too, in a different way. And just in the brief scenes that them and Picard have at the beginning of the episode, right before this like TV interview that Picard does, which gives us a lot of exposition about what's been going on in the Star Trek universe.
Well, and the worst thing about that was the fact that, like, they're talking about how he has to do this interview. It's the first interview he's done since the incident, and all that, blah blah blah. And you just know this is going to go bad, right? Like, there's absolutely no surprise here. You know, he's going to sit down, he's going to start getting emotional. But the one thing I will say for that entire scene was, honestly, Patrick Stewart, the guy still has it. Like, he can, he still acts the shit out of everything he's in, right? So I think that's great.
Yeah, like, I agree with that the first like, this whole interview, this smug reporter, and you know, when they tease that line, like, don't worry, they won't ask you about your life in Star, or why you left Starfleet. Don't worry, we already made sure that.
It was literally like the second question.
It's like all she wanted to ask.
Yeah,
and she's like, I thought we were here to talk about the Romulan thing. And she's like, well, I kind of want to talk about how those androids all went nuts and killed those people on Mars. And I'd like to ask why you left Starfleet. So
they should have just put down on the bottom, backstory.
Like, you know, and you know, like, how not to do your job. But like, what we learned in this whole scene is, okay, roughly about the 10 years after the events of Nemesis, and was alluded to in the J.J. Abrams 2009 Star Trek movie, that the supernova around Romulus exploded, the planet was destroyed. Spock tried to stop that with that red matter, and he ended up in the Chris Pine universe. And so we're kind of seeing what was the fallout of that. And this has been touched upon in a few semi-canon sources over the years, but it seems like they're retconning a few aspects of that. There was like a prequel comic to that was published, and that had set up that Data was resurrected from B4 and became the captain of the Enterprise. And that doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to have thrown that all out. So I think that everything that kind of occurred around those events seems to be sort of being rewritten for this show, which I think is fine, because I don't think most people read that comic book. But we learned that Picard led this massive fleet to try to, like, get people out. He makes reference to Dunkirk, and that the Federation supported this initially, but then I decided to not at some part way through, saying, why are we helping our greatest enemy? Jane, what did you think of that?
Well, I took that they decided to not once their whole shipyard was destroyed. So the investment to create more, to start building a ton of more ships, there was probably a lot of resentment against the Romulans. So that's when I take it that they stopped with the rescue mission.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't put that together. Okay, so is that what everyone else got?
I didn't care.
Didn't, but,
honestly. Sorry, Kevin.
I said I didn't, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
So what my biggest question is, why did they do this? Why did they destroy the ships? Who did it? Who's going to benefit from that the most? That's the biggest question I have.
Well, the synthetics did it. They blew up the fucking planet.
Do they really care about the Romulans? No. Do they? Why would they? So who's behind it?
Yeah.
The board?
Well, that's a good question. Is like, so we need to learn a lot about why did Romulus's sun explode in the first place? As I remember when Spock in that 2009 movie saying a supernova threatened to destroy the galaxy. That's the line that Leonard Nimoy has in that movie. And I was always like, so was there some kind of massive supernova that was going to destroy the galaxy and it ended up only destroying Romulus? That doesn't seem to be the case. It just seems to be our sun was going to explode. The Romulans called the Federation in for help. And initially they did. And then I guess after Mars was destroyed, the Federation's like, no, we don't care anymore. And that all got pulled back. And so this leads to Picard resigning from Starfleet. Is this kind of what everybody else tracked? Like that he got pissed off and he was like, it was no longer Starfleet, and we had lost our core.
In that interview, there was one moment there though when she says Romulan lives, and he corrects her and says, no, lives.
Lives, yeah. I love that line.
That shows me that this show is going back to its roots. It's going to be a show about morality and ethics. Like Star Trek, it's not just going to be Star Wars. It's not
is there any kind of like modern day political commentary we can take from that line? Because
Alexander?
Well, I'm sure you're hinting at either either like the civil unrest in a lot of countries, or for instance the American border issues or stuff like that, like the whole racism card. Stuff like that. And I think they are kind of touching on that. I think Kevin's totally on that one.
Yeah. Like this whole idea, I think on a general level, just nationalism, like does the Federation have a goal to protect just Federation citizens or just lives in general? And like, the conundrum around that.
I just want to put my own fan theory out. I think the sun was blown up by Worf's son, Alexander.
Worf's son?
Yeah, he's an asshole.
He's not responsible for everything that's ever gone wrong in Star Trek.
I'm just saying. 10 years later. Just saying. Who knows?
Alexander, right? Alexander Roshenko.
God, Alexander drives me mental. Anyway, go ahead.
No. Yeah.
Of course, I'm kidding, but still.
I would much be more inclined to blame it on Wesley Crusher than to Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up, Wesley. God, I hope he's in there.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. So after this whole kind of exposition we get at the beginning, then we're introduced to this our first of our new characters, Dash. I think Dash. I can't remember.
Dash.
Just Dash.
Okay,
right?
So my initial response to her was I thought she was going to be like a love child between Picard and Vash. That chick, the chick who was like the fortune hunter in Next Gen, and then she showed up on DS9 for a little bit and stuff like that. That was my initial reaction. I actually texted you while I was watching the episode. I'm like, "What the hell is the name of that chick again?"
Right. So you thought that she was some kind of love child from that?
Yeah, for a second. Yeah, I was like, the names are so kind of, kind of the same idea. Who knows, right? So, and then obviously that got quashed pretty quickly, but still.
What was interesting to me, and I know you guys haven't seen much of Discovery, but this boyfriend she had, apparently Jane was telling me was the same species likely of this other character we met in the second season of Star Trek Discovery, because he had the blinky eyes going sideways or whatever.
Oh, knifey in the chest guy? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Poe, I think Poe, her name from one of the short tracks, and then she appeared in the last season of Discovery.
Yeah. So
that was a little connection they made to Discovery. Dear Discovery.
Yeah, so dear Discovery.
Which might get better this season.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for what? How long now?
And it's going forward.
Since episode 3, I've been hearing that.
I'm very skeptical, but this isn't about Kevin? Discovery. But
no Discovery talk.
Good. I might have to leave.
So when this strike force, like these masked men show up to abduct her, they kill the boyfriend through the knife. First of all, my first thought was like, well, who uses a knife in the future? And so I was like, it's got to be Klingons or Romulans or something like that, because like who else? Why wouldn't you just shoot them?
I don't know.
That's true.
Why was that better? Why was it better just to throw the knife into?
Because it was awesome to look at. It is a TV show.
It was a TV. It is a TV show.
We're in Star Trek 2009's universe now.
Well, we're kind of in both, right?
A little bit of lens flare. Not a lot, though. They just used a little.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the look of this show, but I just on this whole plot point around, her, we kind of get introduced, and then she kind of goes, she activates, as they said, when they're trying to abduct her. They put the bag over her head, and then she goes all kung fu, like she's with the bag on, and she goes a little bit Black Widow. Is that what you guys got?
Before that, they said, I like that. Oh, I wrote down what they said. They said there's others. And so the activator was like, where are you from?
Where are the others?
So that means that they didn't say other, just your twin. So that means to me that there are more than just these two women out there who could be activated, who could potentially come to see Picard as well, right?
Potentially.
Did you get that?
Well,
I didn't catch that, but that's a very good observation.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, there's definitely others, because the Romulans know where her sister is.
Yeah. Well, they're
Romulans
working with her.
know. Yeah, they seem to be working with her. So we'll get to that.
But we can't talk about that because that's at the end of the episode.
Well, if you want to talk about the end, let's talk about the end. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the big ending, which is where,
Dun, dun, dun.
yeah. Well, we meet her twin. They said that they're made these organic androids similar to like a Battlestar Galactica Cylon. They seem to be lifting that idea a little bit. That we meet the pair. They said that they're made in pairs, and so we meet the sisters. Anyone remember the sister's name? Or this other?
It's
like
Dr. Soji.
Soji.
Dr. Soji, yes. And they're at what's titled as a Romulan reclamation site, but turns out to be a kind of a repurposed Borg cube. What were your initial reactions to that?
Confusion. I don't know.
Well, they have to have somewhere to live, yes, right? They have no home world, so why not?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I don't know.
Honestly, I already knew, like the minute they showed that set piece, you already knew it was the Borg ship, right? Like it wasn't really well hidden at all that they were on like something else. You're like, no, this is the fucking Borg cube. Like we know this. And then, obviously they do that pan shot where like the cube comes up and it's like, and all that, and you're just like, okay, well, yeah, great. No, it's a big Borg ship. But the only thing they did show you on the external shots was that they're rebuilding it. So they are actually, reconditioning it or whatever the hell they're doing with it. But you can see that they're obviously repairing it. So do they have the technology to, completely repair and get it working the way that the Borg were using it? That could be a problem too. Maybe, I'm just throwing it out there, but maybe there'll be some simulation that has nothing to do with the Borg in the episodes to come. Like, who knows, right?
Yeah,
So
maybe. Go ahead, Jen.
Where do we think Borg are right now? Like at the end of Voyager, Janeway did a number on the Queen, as I recall.
She destroyed her subspace hub, or her transwarp hub, I think it was called.
Yeah, but then she was like falling apart. Kind of, she infected her. Like, do you think the Borg survived that?
We know that some of them have, right? Because we've seen clips that hint to that. We also have that Hugh's in there as well, but obviously he's now human-esque kind of guy. Yeah, he's an individual now. I wouldn't be shocked to see if you start seeing the Romulans using Borg technology, for various things, and Starfleet gets all in a huff about it, and you start seeing them rocking around assimilating or something. Who knows?
Yeah, almost like the Romulans have assimilated the Borg.
Could be. Yeah. So
actually,
that's
I just had a question. I know when at the end I wrote that Soji, that guy, we don't know who he is, walked up to her and he's like complaining about his brother dying the year before. And he said, "Oh, you spend all day fixing broken people. So is she a counselor?" Or I'm like, or is she fixing broken people literally?
No, I'm almost positive she's dealing with, these synthetics. Like, they probably have like hundreds of them sitting on that ship. Like, who knows, right? And I think the rogue ones that go nuts are the ones that the task force are going out to get. So you have, so Soji's sister, or whatever her name was, Doll or Do or Dada, whatever.
Dosh.
Dosh, there you go.
Maybe that's why the synthetics went nuts. Maybe they're using Borg technology in the synthetics.
And shit's going wrong because, they got a virus in there or something. Anybody who works in IT knows that can happen. But anyway, but yeah.
Kind of screwed themselves over by what they were doing, caused the synthetics to trash Utopia Planitia, which then stopped the rescue effort. Like,
well, let's face it. If you look at the history, even in the next gen timeline, you look at the history of the Romulans, they fuck up all the time. Like, these guys are always fucking up. Screwing up. But they're always screwing up, and they're always like, oh, we're making a new blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden it like goes haywire, and Federation helps them as a courtesy thing or something. So you have the episode where what was it? Jody and Lauren were phased out or whatever. The perfect example, right? Like they did it, they fucked it up, right? So who knows? Like, let's be honest. Like, can they handle being Borg-esque? Probably not.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, like it's very because we kind of been really out of touch with what's been going on for 20 years of this universe, or it's 20 years. So because it's been 20 years since Nemesis, which would put this around 2399, which would make Picard 94. Yeah. So like he's not a young man by any means at this point in his life. I kind of brought this up in my initial reaction. I'm like, because those TNG movies tried to portray Jean-Luc Picard so much as an action hero. Yeah. And because I guess they wanted to make him more Kirk-like for the movies or something like that. I'm going to be interested, but that's never really what Picard was in his TV iteration.
Well, I'm glad they didn't do that in this first episode.
Yeah, like even like that
man that's just watching the action.
He's sitting there going, oh, like he's clearly cowering. He's not the man he used to be when it comes to, balls deep into it, right? Like,
yeah, and like John,
and that makes sense, right?
Patrick Stewart is not as old as the character he's playing, but yeah, it's just like with that whole sequence where they're chasing Dosh like through up those stairs in San Francisco, and she's throwing them out there and like throwing them over the ledge, and they're beaming away, and then he's really not. He's kind of like a non-factor in that whole thing. He nearly gets himself killed.
Well, he's hiding behind a bench.
Do you guys recall how old McCoy was? Remember when he came on to the Enterprise?
I do.
TG, and he was old.
I thought they said he was in his 70s.
No.
Oh no, I thought it was like 120 or something like
that. Really? Okay.
I know the answer. I can tell you.
What's the answer?
Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's 137.
137.
Yeah. So
he's still a prick.
Right. He is. Because he goes, do you know how old I am, boy? And Data says to him, according to historical records, 137 years. He goes, how do you know that so exactly? He's like, I'm an android. Well, you got no points on your ears, boy. Here, I'm doing my best to force Kelly from Encounter and Found.
You should work on it.
I should work on it?
Yeah.
I think it's closer than you think it is. All right. But, hey.
But let's move on.
I'll submit to them. Yeah.
If you won't host, I will.
Okay, Dave, move on. Just going back to that whole action sequence where I guess Dash is killed by that green slime he spits on her. What do you guys make of that?
Okay, so just so we're clear, he bites down on something and then shoots it. They haven't produced the ability to shoot this shit.
Okay,
All
I was
right?
wondering.
So
I
you
was
clearly
wondering.
see him bite down on like a capsule or something, and then he goes, and he just shoots it at her, right? And then it's obviously acid and shit, and she's like, ah, you know. Obviously, she isn't that good, but anyway,
She's not acid proof.
she's not acid proof. Well, neither was Data technically.
Right. So she is apparently killed. He's just kind of like sent home, I guess, to his bed, which I thought was odd that he didn't like wake up in a hospital.
Well, he passed out because he got nailed with the he got nailed with the I almost fell over myself. The explosion itself threw Jean-Luc like fucking really far and probably knocked his head and shit, right?
I got that too, but that all thing I was saying is like it was surprising that he woke up on his couch instead of like in a hospital.
The future, Dave. Maybe they don't need hospitals for that kind of thing.
Well, okay.
Maybe there's no recovery period. They just
Maybe there's
scan him
like one of those little things that they attach to your neck, and then he goes home and wakes up eventually.
Yeah, it's no big deal. You know, almost
like,
getting
barely
like
an inconvenience.
Napster for healthcare.
Yeah, but this after this, like Picard is now he's invigorated. He's been inspired. He's kind of we kind of skipped over the fact that he went to Starfleet Academy and kind of figured out that she had some kind of connection to Data. That she
the nostalgia bomb.
The nostalgia bomb when they go into like the time capsule.
When I saw the Captain Picard Day sign.
It's the wrong sign.
Yeah.
Did anybody catch that?
The wrong sign?
No,
it's the wrong sign. It doesn't have the same. So in the original show, it was silver and kind of shiny. When they show it in there, it's not. It's like flat matte.
Oh, so you're saying they recreated it for
obviously they have more problems than just fonts. I'm just saying it. But at least that's the way it looked like to me. I downloaded the 1080p stream of it, so I don't know if maybe my stream was screwed up or not. But
on ours, like just very white.
It looked almost like a gray white, and it was like a matte finish instead of a shiny finish. So I don't give them points for that. But all the other stuff that they put in the chamber was pretty cool, though, I thought.
Okay, so this room that he goes into, at first I thought it was like his storage room where he kept all his cool stuff.
No, it's his archive.
It's like his archive.
It's Picard's archive.
So anybody can go there and look at it, or you have to, or is it like a museum?
Yeah, it's celebrating him. Like if you, I'm almost positive I saw like a sign or something that actually had his badge there. Like it said, Jean-Luc Picard, Admiral, retired or something. But I could be wrong on that. I've been reading a lot of extra shit too, so who knows? But with that, like it's supposed to be like everything about him. Like it has his book in it from, it's got the complete works of Shakespeare. The whole book that he had on the in the ready room, a whole bunch of stuff on there. It also implies that he has his own. What's the blade? The Klingon blade. Batleth. See, all of you got that, but I didn't. That's insane. But anyway, there's a batleth there, but it's obviously not Worf's. It's just one he has. But it kind of links you to the fact that he's well respected in the Empire, stuff like that. I think those were kind of neat little things, and obviously the captain's yacht was there from the E. 1701E. The captain's yacht was there. The Stargazer was on the opposite side. Stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff was also, it was all about him as far as I could tell.
Right.
That was the impression I got, but I could be wrong.
It was like the Picard Greatest Hits archive room.
Yeah, it's just like a dedication room to him, I guess, in the archives that people can go and look at and stuff. I did like that cool thing that they did with the thing that he brought out of storage.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
yeah, it's like flop, 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 and it like opens it up. I guess it's to preserve the documents or whatever. The painting was in there, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, that was pretty cool. I remember when he put it on the desk, I was like, if he just opens that like a box, I'm gonna be really disappointed.
Well, they didn't disappoint you, did they? That looked pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, like if you're gonna make the show in the future, at least make it a futuristic box. Come on.
Yeah. Well, and it's an oil canvas painting, so it kind of makes sense that they want to keep it in something airtight to preserve it and stuff. And he did mention that that was the one that he was given to him by Data.
Yeah.
Jane, also when he's visiting like the archives, more on the exterior, we get the first glimpse of these new Starfleet uniforms. Not really close up, but we do see them. What were your first impressions of those?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Honestly, didn't even notice them.
Oh, did anybody else?
Not
Neither did
much.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Dave.
Oh, so
No.
when he goes to that archive, he like there's I think it's afterwards. He's outside right before she kind of finds him again. And we see the Starfleet uniforms. They're very reminiscent of the Deep Space Nine uniforms with the color shoulders on top, but it's the Mandarin style collar that the TNG era uniforms had. Like that's all I've
Head.
So this kind of gets into a point that I wanted to kind of talk about eventually anyway, and I'll just quickly briefly say it. This show does not cater to the casual viewer.
No.
Like this episode didn't anyway. Like honestly, like the casual viewer that has seen Next Gen, but they don't know like every little itty bitty thing. Like how many people are going to know that that's a Stargazer? You know what I mean? Like how many people are going to know that that's the captain's yacht? Especially if you're like a casual fan, right? And I mean casual, right? So that was kind of a problem I had about the episode as well, was they weren't bringing in anybody new into the series. It was more like a fan service. And that kind of bothered me a bit.
Well, I'd say that that I think that they're kind of learning from their past mistakes, because I think that that's what Discovery was trying to do a little too much, was trying to appeal to a wider audience of people who had never seen Star Trek maybe before, or were only maybe familiar with like the J.J. Abrams movies. Because there's like this, you know, we're in our 30s and 40s respectively, and you know, we're a little older than maybe some of these people who are now watching. They want to bring in new people, right? But I don't think a lot of people want to watch Star Trek Picard if they don't have any familiarity with Star Trek. Like I think that it's
and I guess that comes with the course of calling it Picard, right? Like they could have called it anything, but they called it Picard because obviously it's going to follow him. But you know, it's, you know, they could have called it Next Gen. You know, like, who knows, right? But it's obviously a darker time, right? So it
seems to be,
I think.
Yeah.
But it's definitely it's not newcomer friendly. That's for sure, in my opinion. Anyway, like you don't know what the fuck's going on if you're a newcomer.
I'm just really glad that finally it's a sequel and not a prequel.
Oh, thank God! Thank God for that.
Oh yeah, I know. I think we're all feeling better, because that was the other, like Discovery being a prequel aside, but a lot of times they were just trying to like, hey, we're gonna go meet Spock, and then like wink at you, like we mentioned Spock.
Remember him?
Remember him? You know
Remember
who
that
he
guy?
is, right? So like they were doing that all the time in Discovery, and it got really pretty annoying pretty fast. So at least I didn't see that in this first episode, that they're not going to try to explain to you like, do you know who Romulans are? Do you know who this species is, that or whatever? Do you know who the Borg are? They don't have to break any of that down for us. I think we're people who are in for the show kind of know this world. They might not remember every single episode or movie, but they know who the basic players are, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to talk about, because we're kind of jumping around a little bit in the episode, but also after Dash dies, he ends up he gets this new invigoration. He's like, I'm going to go out. I've been waiting to die. I'm going to kind of live my life again. I'm going to actually become a player in society. I'm over my 10-year pity party, and I'm going to go out there and live life. And so he ends up at the Daystrom Institute, which I never knew was in Okinawa, but apparently it's in Okinawa. So that's a new addition. And we meet the first of one of our new series regulars, other than the girl who plays Dosh / Goji, the sister, who I know is another series regular. Alison Pill's character, who's some sort of an apprentice to Maddox, to Dr. Maddox, who we know from the episode A Measure of a Man, who actually had studied under Noonien Soong and who had tried to recreate androids for his whole career. And apparently we learned in this episode that he, after the ban on cybernetic or synthetic life forms, he disappeared. But what did you think of Alison Pill sort of initially in this as one of the new series regulars?
I don't like her.
Don't like her?
No, I don't like the character. At least what I have so far.
Until they did the coming up, and she looks like she's going to be like goofy and sort of comic relief. I don't know
Well,
what that.
and that's kind of part of the problem because you're kind of portraying this the dark part of the storyline of Star Trek, and yet you have this girl who's like, "Do, do, 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 do," you know, and, and
A little
like
too chipper?
I can't get over the fact that she's in the movie Goon. Okay, and every time I see her now, I'm like, okay, why is she in this now? You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
What, you think they should retire her after Goon? She served her
Well,
role?
no, but she should be in comedies. Like it's clearly what she's good at. You know, and I'm not saying that she can't do dramatic role and stuff like that. I'm just saying that, like, to me, it's going to be a hard sell. I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that she needs to go bye-bye. I'm just saying, you know, it's a hard sell for me. That's all. You
weren't impressed with what you've seen so far?
No, like even her conversation with Picard, she's sitting at the desk with him explaining things. It's almost like she's mansplaining everything. And it's like this is a fucking admiral, okay? Like this is a guy who literally has been through hell and back. He's seen shit she could never even imagine or, you know, comprehend. And she's like, so just so you know, what we did is we did this and then we did this and then we did this. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, shut up. You know, it's just it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure she's gonna be fine, but that first initial outing to me, just I'm with Kevin on this one. It's like it's almost like, you know, they're setting her up for comic relief, and it's not gonna fly. So I hope they don't do it.
Jane, any thoughts on her character?
I don't want to talk bad about this actress. I've never been a big fan of this actress, so I will not really comment. I'm kind of with them.
I was just
I don't know who she is. I don't know why everybody has such strong opinions. I've never seen her before in my life.
You've never seen the movie Goon?
No.
Oh,
have you seen Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah, she was in Scott Pilgrim as well. Oh my God, what the hell? Do you watch anything?
She was in The Newsroom.
Nope. Yeah, she was in The Newsroom. Yeah.
But
we're gonna find something she was in that he's seen. We're gonna have to
be something. She dated Jean for a number of years as well, but that's kind of
that's why she was in his. That's why she was in Goon.
She was in Goon, yeah, right, and she's also
in the second one too.
She's in the second one. Yeah, she's a Canadian actress, and the show is shot in Toronto, and we're not far from Toronto, so it stands to reason we're going to see a lot of Canadian talent in the show. But when I saw Alison Pill in the cast, it was the part that goes, I went, uh-oh, you know, is she going to pull the show down? I just think she's a bit of a polarizing actor a little bit. Anyway, but I personally was okay with her scene. I thought that she was good. I thought that, you know, he's like, could you ever make a flesh and blood android? And she kind of just like laughs at him, and she says, well, in like 1,000 years you could, but never.
That's what I didn't like. Like, this is a guy that everybody in this universe knows. Okay, like everybody at least on Earth probably knows about him, because obviously the things that have happened. Sorry?
And he's not known for his sense of humor.
No, like this isn't a guy that's like, oh, let's have a chuckle, you know? It's like, no, this is like, this guy just fucking gets his shit done and he's done, right? So like, he's there for information. He's not there to like get fucking laughed at. And it just didn't work for me. I don't know.
I was trying to remember if I can think of a scene with Picard laughing. Not really.
Oh, there are.
Oh, yeah. Remember when he draws the face in the warp?
In the warp, the cloud that's just in it, and he's like, dee, 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 dee. He's like,
when he was losing his mind, yes. That was the only time he laughed.
He's not good at laughing.
No, he's a very serious character.
But that's kind of what he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we see B4 also in this scene. We see him disassembled, and that they never got very far. They tried to kind of download Data's memory, but he was such an inferior prototype compared to Data that couldn't take that any far. And then the ban happened, and that's basically it. He's just been sitting there in storage. My question for the group is, do you think we'll see Lore pop up in this show at all? Or do you think we'll never see Lore again?
Only if Brent Spiner needs a paycheck.
Right.
That's my answer.
I'm done with Lore. I never liked Lore.
I'm with you. I understand the basis for having him, but there was far too many plot things with him. It's like literally, it's like, okay, well, we don't have a bad guy for this episode, so it was Lore. You know,
Right.
it's like, oh,
Hey,
come on.
Brent Spiner's already on the payroll. We don't have to pay him to play a second role.
Yeah,
so,
they're like, fuck that guy. He can also sit in the drawer too. Doesn't even have to talk.
yeah, we don't have to hire anybody new to come in to
Who
do
gets
this.
paid for a likeness? Anyway,
I don't know. I don't know about such things,
I
but
hope
I
so.
do. Yeah, well, he's back on. He's in this show on some level, either on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, which I'm kind of curious to see. But the whole I hated the B4 character in Star Trek Nemesis, and to see him kind of come out of this drawer, I'm like, oh, I'd rather have Lord back. I'd rather this be. If you're gonna show me a disassembled android, show me him.
We don't need to talk about Nemesis, do we?
I think it's unavoidable in some ways because I think that Nemesis just it's the last thing kind of canon wise that we have before this installment, right?
I feel about Nemesis like Kevin feels about Enterprise.
Mhm.
I hate Nemesis as well. I think it's the worst Star Trek movie, period.
Five?
5 for sure.
5.
But then they made
I'd rather-
6, and that was
5's
glorious.
I'd much rather watch 5 than Nemesis. 5 is bad.
No.
It's very bad, but it's got its moments. It's got its like I hate everything about Nemesis, especially the screenwriting. The whole script is cringy.
Oh yeah.
And we're not here to talk, but I think that there's plot points from Nemesis. B4, Data's death, the whole the fact that the Romulans were such a big part of that movie, and the fact that so in that movie. When he's fighting his clone and he's got that big ship, the Romulans come to their aid, if you recall. And even Worf, the guy who is always anti-Romulan, came around and said the Romulans fought admirably today, and now I'm starting not to hope they die. And I know we're not likely to see Michael Dorn in this show, but I'm kind of curious because apparently he's not happy that they didn't want to bring back the entire next gen cast like as regulars. He kind of
what are they going to do? Stroll on their fucking strollers in? Like, come on.
Well,
We can't have everybody in.
they're not part of the same crew, so they've all got their own lives now.
Yeah, they're all out doing their own shit, right?
Right, and I think that they want, like, I know that we kind of know from trailers and whatever that we're going to see Riker back in some form. We're going to see Troy back in some form.
We're definitely going to see Jody. We're going to see Jody.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be something like Picard's going to be like, "Oh, I found another B4 and I need somebody to fix it. Where's Jody?" You know, it's like
Guinan's coming back maybe next season.
Yeah.
Supposedly she's confirmed, but that was Patrick Stewart confirming it, not anybody else. Yeah.
So
I don't know if he has that kind of power.
I think we will see all of the next generation characters make some kind of a return at some point, even if it's just for a scene or something. But I think that other than Michael Dorn, Worf, I don't think that we're likely going to see him back this year, at least. And
here's hoping we never see Barclay again.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Oh, Barclay!
What? No Barclay?
What
Yeah,
do
how'd you feel with Barclay?
Oh, Barclay's terrible. Yeah, I'm gonna move here for a minute here, guys. Sorry.
No worries.
Can we, Dave?
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go. I'm back.
Talk about Daj's mother?
Yeah, I was thinking that we did kind of skip over that one point. So so after she runs away from Picard's house that first night she stays, but before she finds him again in San Francisco, she's running around. I think it's raining, and she calls her mother on her phone through FaceTime, and and she's like she's. Who do you think this mother character was? Because we learned that as she's an android, she doesn't really have parents. She probably has implanted memories of some form. Who was this person she called?
She's the synthetic handler.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Jane, do you have a thought? Theory?
Well, I'm just okay. Remember when I got you to rewind? I thought from the back, I swear it kind of looked like the Borg Queen's head with stuff coming out of it. I don't know about
no way. I gotta look at that
either,
again.
Maddox or the Borg Queen or maybe a Romulan. Like, I don't know who is orchestrating this. And who is this? why, and if it is Romulans, like, well, I guess he's on board with Romulans. Why send her to Picard for protection? Like, what is the end game here? I don't know, and I'm just that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think it's going to be a handler that loves her too much.
Well, here's my theory: is that it was some kind of deception, some kind of a filter. We're talking to somebody else. I think you're right, and I think that my most likely candidate right now is that commander. What's his name? Maddox.
Maddox.
Yeah, so we met him in like the second season of TNG, as we mentioned, for The Measure of a Man, and we never really saw him again. But they do mention him in this episode that Alison Pill was sort of his apprentice of some form, and that he is possibly the one who created them from that science, but illegally, because it's illegal to build artificial life forms.
And he used a piece of Data's positronic net. Like there's a little kernel of that. Is that what we're thinking?
That he somehow was able to take a kernel of Data's positronic net from B4 and was able to use that to somehow create Dosh and Moji.
The episode of Next Generation, does Data give him something?
Yeah, he said that he would be happy to like come do experiments when they're safe or something. And
Data was sending his logs to him.
Yes, there was an episode where Data writes him a letter.
Yeah, because Data's like talking about his like day in the life of Data thing, and he's sending it to Maddox.
Yeah, do you remember that episode, everybody? Like,
I remember it.
That's the one, where Brent Spiner, Data goes, he's basically interacting with every character. He kind of gives a little commentary.
Data's Day, wasn't it?
I think it is Data's Day, yeah.
Data's Day was the name of the episode, yeah.
That's the last time that character was mentioned on screen, and so now they're. Jane was telling me earlier that they're going to recast somebody in this role. They're probably not bringing back that same actor,
or they just haven't cast him yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I need that same actor back.
I don't care if it's the same actor.
No. I can point him out in a lineup. Like, I know he was a skinny dude, but that was about all I remember.
And it was 30 something years ago. Now 33 years ago. It doesn't matter.
You could show me any old man and say that's Maddox, and I'd be like, okay.
But I'm interested to see that character come back. I think tying back as much to the show without making it forced is a good thing. I think making this not a true sequel to Next Generation of those movies, but it's certainly a sequel for this character, for the Picard character.
I don't look at it as a sequel. I just look at it as more of a carry on to just Picard itself. I don't think we're going to get too much into the rest of what's Beverly Crusher doing right now? I don't think we're going to get into any of that. I think it's going to be just Picard, and Crusher might show up on there, but past that, that's about it, right? I don't consider it a sequel, because if it's a sequel, then I would imagine there'd be more story with the rest of the cast, and I don't think it's a sequel. I think it's more of just a continuation of just Picard's story, and it kind of seems to be where we're heading. But I think we're going to see more stuff in the long run.
Okay, so I think we've kind of, from a plot perspective, we've kind of covered everything. Like we talked about the ending already. The only thing we haven't really addressed from the ending is who is this character? We think he's a Romulan that this twin is talking to at the end on the Borg ship, saying you fix broken people. I'm hoping we get to know who he is and how he plays into this story. But that was about it. Like, I think that's the only other thing that I sort of had on this episode, kind of left wondering.
Well, and after they showed the Borg ship come up, they then showed us a bunch of shots for the rest of the season, right? And obviously Jerry Ryan's in there, and various stuff. You see Jerry Ryan crying about somebody in her arms. Could be her kid. Who knows? Like, maybe They did say in Voyager that she can procreate. So it's one of those things that maybe she that's her son that just got killed by Romulans, or a rogue Data or something. Who knows?
Well, okay, so we know that Hugh's back from the Next Gen, and I assume that my assumption here is I won't know until I see it on screen, but my assumption is that like 7 of 9 and Hugh know each other, like as being two of the only
she might be his support or something like that, or
Like there aren't a lot of like reformed Borg in the galaxy. I think probably there's only a handful of them, like 7 of 9, Jean-Luc Picard.
For all we know, there could be hundreds of thousands of them now.
There could be more now. We don't know what's been going on for 20 years. But...
Well, you also had, at the end of Nemesis, or sorry, not Nemesis, excuse me, Voyager, with the whole, killing the Queen or killing the transwarp hub or whatever. They can't all be in one area. Okay, like obviously the Borg ships are all over the place. The Romulans have a Borg ship in their possession, so we know that the Borg still exist in some sort of entity in this world. And whether it be, they're now just the past, or are they being experimented on? Are they now being fused with the synthetics? Because the synthetics are a lot of biological, right? Like they're a lot of just normal flesh and blood.
These new ones are, at least the Dash and Goji. Is that her name?
So what? Goji, yeah. So what if Goji is running the project for the Romulans to put the synthetics and the Borg together? And that's why they need the Borg ship, because that's how they regenerate all the Borgs. Stuff like that. Like there's so many weird things we can go to. Like we know that Picard at one point or another in the series is going to be locked away. We see him in a jail cell or some sort of penitentiary type situation. So we know at one point or another he's going to get captured. So is he getting captured by the Romulans? Is it going to be somebody else? Who knows? But it looks like he's escaping from a Romulan facility of some sort, because there is Romulan writing all over the walls and stuff like that. So who knows where it's going to go? Obviously, we're one episode in. Like, who knows?
I like personally, I'm kind of really interested to see what's going on more at home with the Federation and Starfleet. I know we see it in some of these previews that Picard is going to go to Starfleet and have some kind of a disagreement with some admiral there about what's happening. And this whole line he gives in this first episode, it was no longer Starfleet. And I'm sorry.
I just saw Jane. She's like, ah. She's trying to hide
a little cough.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just I think that's kind of the thing about this premiere that kind of left me unsettled, was like that Picard left Starfleet for moral objections, and that the Federation turned their backs on this Romulan refugee crisis somehow. And I'm like, well, that's not the Starfleet and the Federation that I know. Although
Starfleet fucks up all the time. It's always
constantly.
Yeah.
Well, I think about like that movie Insurrection, right, where the admiral, they're gonna like exploit that planet. Not that it's a great movie, but
and Picard gave up his rank and all that shit during that movie as well. Like it's not the first time the guy said "fuck Starfleet." Like he's done this a couple times. Like this is not
true.
New.
He's kind of shown that that he's kind of willing to walk or do what he thinks is morally right.
The man has a moral compass, and if Starfleet goes against that moral compass, he tells them to stick it up their ass. It's that simple. And he's done that a bunch of times. And you even saw it in that interview scene. He's like, it was lives. It wasn't Romulan lives. Like that. Like, he was just, and let's be honest, Patrick Stewart was acting the shit out of that. So, it's
do we think that Picard is right all the time about everything? Is he not pragmatic enough? Like, think about the episode where he lets Hugh go, right? And then, he sends him back to the collective, not as a sort of as a Trojan horse, as a virus, but just on his own, because he wants individuality to take precedence. And then he gets chewed up by an admiral later down the road about that. Like, if you have the opportunity to like safeguard Federation lives, you do it. That's your job. And he was like, well, no, I have to uphold my moral contract. And so that's why I'm asking the question. But
he was against the genocide of the Borg.
No, he wasn't against the genocide. He was against not respecting Hugh's individuality at the time, more so.
I got the gist of he didn't want to eradicate the species.
Yeah,
that's the gist I got from that episode. But let's be honest, though. Picard makes mistakes. We already know that, because if the man was infallible, Alexander would never be on that ship. Plain and simple. And possibly Wesley.
Yeah.
Wesley.
Ashley and I were laughing. I thought it would be hilarious if Majel Barrett were still alive, if they were married.
Oh,
That would be amazing.
But she still made him just as uncomfortable.
Yeah. You go and you see him, and he's sitting in he's sitting in the lounge having his tea, and she comes out from the bedroom or something. It's like, what the fuck? It's like that would have been amazing. But
I'm interested to kind of see. I'm interested also to kind of see this kind of like what this time period that we're now set in roughly corresponds to when that future that Picard went into, and that All Good Things, the last episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. He's going to like this possible future. Again, he's running the vineyard.
How old was he then, though?
older.
He would have been really old then.
But the year that's set in is roughly pretty close to this year that the show is set in. So this is roughly that same corresponding.
Did he get rid of that? What was it, like Neurosine syndrome or whatever that was called? Did they why doesn't he have that?
Yeah, why doesn't he have that syndrome? Maybe that was cured at some point.
I don't think it's at the same time. I think it's like 10, 15 years before that.
Well, he says 25 years in that episode in All Good Things. He says it's about 25 years since we were all on the Enterprise D together. And that would, actually it's probably a little bit earlier than this show is set.
Well, that's screwing up the canon then, because realistically the E came after that in the movies, and that was 10 years later or something?
But they also say at the end of that episode that was just one possible future that Q showed Picard.
Well, that's true. It was an outcome thing, yeah.
And that they had the power to change, and Picard told them what would happen, that him and Beverly Crusher got married and then divorced, that Troy was killed somewhere along the line, and this led to a major falling out between Worf and Riker. I
would have loved to see that.
Yeah, but that was never meant to be. That will be what the future is. But to Jane's point, like that's the syndrome that he has that was going to kind of take away his mind slowly over time would be in full effect by now, and it isn't. Seemingly, they haven't made that part of this first episode, at least.
Do we think we'll see Q?
I fucking hope so. I really do. Q is like one of my favorite things. Yeah. But I can't see how they're going to work him in. But I wouldn't say no. I would love to see him.
Seasons,
maybe like a retired Q. Sorry, say that again.
Maybe in future seasons, but not in.
It won't be in the first season. No. Yeah, maybe if we get to like season 3 or 4, maybe.
He's really conducive to the single episode, so like the episodic kind of format. But this is going to be one story dragged out over the 10 episodes. Right?
It's more serialized. It
would be nice to see if like maybe Picard goes to him for advice or something. Like the man who has always hated this guy, almost in a way respects him in a way. You know what I mean? Like it. Especially after the outcome of Next Gen, where it's kind of I've shown you what could happen. Yeah, you got to change shit, right? So that's kind of what, in a way, Q actually did him a favor, because Q was the one that said you got to get your ass to that poker table. You gotta actually be a little bit better than you are, and that's kind of what the whole goal of the entire series was progression of man. It was to go explore, to see new things, stuff like that, and to better ourselves. And I think Q kind of added that to the end of Next Gen. It was a simple nod.
You can also say that was kind of baked into Next Generation from the beginning. Like Q is in that first episode, Encounter at Farpoint. He puts humanity on trial, and then the finale is basically like the end of that trial, right? But he also says the trial's never really over. So
Yep.
so could we see a part 3 of that? Could we see Q, John Delancey back in the robes? I hope so.
I wouldn't be shocked to see him in like a flashback, at least, like some sort of memory of Picard. Obviously, Picard's got this active memory thing going on, and that could be part of what Jane's talking about, which is, where's that disease, right? Where's that? And that might be how they end it. They might end it with him actually getting it, and we're back to the end of Next Gen, one of those timelines, right? So it's very possible, and they may have been they realistically could be screwing us over right now. With one episode in, they may have already shown us that, right? And we're just not realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I was also thinking, I don't know where Borg stands, obviously, but they did 2 dream sequences in this episode, and I know he has a connection to the Borg. Still did kind of after.
Yeah.
Could the Borg be communicating to him right now?
Projecting or something. Yeah.
Borg queens. Why? Is he talking to the Borg as through his dreams right now? I don't know. Or
it's been hinted at a bunch of times that he can still hear the continuum, right? Like he can still hear that. Once in a while, the collective. Sorry, not the continuum.
Borg technology, and that's why they seem to know him.
Sorry?
That's why Dosh seemed to know him, is because the synthetics use Borg technology.
I never even thought of that. That's a great idea. I never even thought of that.
Are you saying they have built-in Bluetooth? These new organics?
Yes, built-in Bluetooth, Dave.
Okay.
It's probably called Green Tooth or something because it's Romulan, but
and Borg too.
And Borg green.
Yeah, I just we're kind of we've been going for about an hour and 10, so we do need to wrap it up. But I do want to say that I am excited to who is going to come back. How are they going to tie into the sort of the long-standing mythos, the canon of Star Trek? But I also want to see these new characters be introduced and become interesting and relevant, and I'm kind of excited for that. The Alison Pill one, not so much, but this actress who was playing the twins, I thought was great in this. I thought she was really interesting and great performance. And I know we're going to get a couple more characters coming up, including one that I think is probably an old flame of Picard from what I've seen. Like an old girlfriend is going to be in the mix somehow. Not somebody we've met before. Not Vash, no. Somebody.
God, I hope not.
Yeah, but somebody sort of with a similar spirit, I get the impression. So I'm kind of excited to see where that goes.
I want to see Riker act or interact with that dog.
Number one?
Yeah. He's like, I'm number one.
Oh, there was one last thing. One last thing I didn't bring up from the episode. What did we all think of Picard speaking French?
Bad.
He's terrible at it.
For
a Frenchman, he's terrible at it.
I think this maybe
obviously it's because it is what it is. I think the best thing that I got about this whole thing was when I watched the first episode of Discovery, I saw the font, and then obviously I saw the rest of the show. But at the end of the first episode of Discovery, I sat there and went, "Do I need to keep going?" This show, they ended it. They ended the episode, and then I'm like, "Oh fuck, I want to see another one now." Right?
You're eager for more.
They definitely have grabbed me better, especially with this kind of darker universe thing. I want to see the bad side. What I really want to see is fucking section 13 or 31, whatever.
31.
31. Yeah, I want to see section 31 in a fucking series. That's what I want. Okay, and I want a proper way of doing it.
It exists already. It's called Discovery.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Coming.
Huh?
Right? There's a section 31 coming. They're doing it.
Yeah, they've been saying that for a while.
I hope.
With their face.
Hey, what I want to know is, and that would be really cool if they put the Romulans are fucking around with Borg technology and Section 31's helping them. That would be cool. But I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't know if they're putting that much thought into it. But
yeah, I don't want to talk a lot about that second season of Discovery because it's just so bad. But and Section 31 is majorly part of that. Captain Georgiou, the mirror version. A mirror I know you guys don't care about the show, so I don't care about spoiling it, but there's a mirror Georgiou, and she joined Section 31. But Section 31, they kind of ruined it because they were less of a clandestine group, and they were more just
Discovery everything. everything.
What's that?
Discovery ruined everything.
Yeah.
I don't think they were responsible for a couple things, but almost everything, yes.
I think the good news is, like, I don't think a lot of people watch Discovery, so I don't think it did a lot of damage in that way.
What I'm hoping they do is just cancel Discovery, because let's be honest, no one needs it. And then either put way more money into this or branch this off, and I start seeing like anthology series. Let's say a small, 10 episode arc of, what's Crusher doing right now? Star Trek Crusher. I wouldn't mind seeing what happens to some of these guys. I don't give a shit about what Geordi's doing. Okay, I don't care what Geordi's doing. I don't care what Barclay's doing. I don't even really care what Worf is doing. But I wouldn't mind seeing what Crusher's doing. And obviously Riker is an old man now, and he's living with Deanna and all that. But it'd be really cool if he had a dog named Picard.
He's got a dog named number 1, and he's got a dog named
maybe
Picard.
He brings it over to the vineyard, and like the two of them like talk together, and they're like, "Let's have a play date with our dogs." And it's like, number 1, why are you always up Picard's ass? That kind of thing.
That'd be interesting.
I'm reaching.
Or maybe Riker has a cat named Picard, and
that would drive him nuts. That would drive him nuts. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being part of this first video podcast that we're doing. I think this worked pretty well. We are going to be back to cover the next episode in a week's time. It seems like we're probably going to do these on Saturdays, because I think just trying to get everyone to do it on Thursday night is not like realistic. Maybe we'll do it Friday night, whatever works best. But this seemed to work okay for everybody. So we're looking for it. We're going to have different people come in and out, different guests at different weeks, but we're going to be covering all 10 episodes of this first season of Star Trek Picard, plus any other Star Trek content that we think would be relevant or worth discussing online. And you're going to be able to listen to the audio version of this podcast pretty soon. We're going to set up an iTunes feed. Plus, you can check us out on YouTube and Facebook. Make sure to subscribe there. So until next week, this has been Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave.
I'm Jody.
I'm Kevin.
And that's the panel. We'll see. We'll talk to you next week when it's episode 2, title Undetermined. Bye for now.